And for more, we're joined by Alasdair Mccallum, who is a PhD scholar at Monash University. How are you today? Thanks for your time.
Thanks very much for having me.
So in terms of where we're placed at the moment, how would you define who's ahead or who has failed when it comes to the war so far?
I think something that I really have to stress is that although we're seeing what is looking more and more like a war of attrition with attacks and counterattacks on both sides that are not shifting the terrain too much, this war has been an unequivocal disaster for Russia. And it's seen a continuous scaling down of their war efforts. If you had said on the eve of Russia's invasion that after more than 3 months of war, Russia would still be fighting to take the city of Severodonetsk of about 100,000 people, you would have been, nobody would have believed you. But it's been a disaster for Russia.
So in terms of where to from here and what that disaster means, do you feel as though there is more desperation for Putin and for Russia to try and find something and achieve something here?
Yes, and so I think the main reason Severodonetsk is so important is that it's the provisional capital of Luhansk Oblast. So the majority of these two oblasts in the east of Ukraine, Donetsk and Luhansk, have been under the control of Russia and Russian-backed separatists, mostly since 2014, but Russia has made significant advances in this area recently. And Severodonetsk is about the last significant city standing in between standing in the way of Russia's complete conquest of Luhansk Oblast, which would certainly be a psychological victory for Russia and something Putin could sell as a tangible achievement.
We've spoken over the past week or so about the food crisis. Of course, many are now blaming Russia for almost intentionally causing this sort of crisis. What are you seeing here, and how much longer do you think this can be protracted for?
I think this is a really salient point, and it's, of course, much of the initial discussion about the economic impact was about Russian commodities, oil and gas mostly, but the conversation has shifted somewhat. Both Ukraine and Russia are among the world's leading exporters of cereals, of grain, of corn, of barley, as well as things like sunflower oil and chemical fertilizers. They're very important. The problem at the moment is that Russia is essentially blockading the Black Sea, through which Ukraine exports most of its food. So the most significant ports in Ukraine are Odessa and Mykolaiv in the southwest of Ukraine. Russia has not taken those cities. It hasn't even come that close, really, but it's able to stop the export of cereals through the Black Sea.
In terms of, just to wrap us up, looking inside Russia and the potential for a coup, for a response to overthrow Vladimir Putin, I mean, I think many people would think that's an impossibility because of how powerful he is. But do you think it's growing in terms of a possibility?
I'm less optimistic than I was. I think I perhaps overestimated the initiative of much of the Russian elite, many of whom are a little more than cronies of Putin at this point. One thing that Putin has done very effectively that makes it very hard to mount an internal coup is that his underlings are placed in multiple departments and multiple areas of the administration that are all kind of constantly competing with each other for his favor. It's been compared to like a medieval court. And a problem here is something you might call the first mover problem. Who's going to be the one to initiate a coup given the potentially severe consequences and likelihood of failure?
Alasdair Mccallum, thank you so much for your time and insight today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.